This is the websites.ca podcast, where we help Canadian small businesses build and maintain an effective website and online presence.
Hello, everybody. Sean Corbett here, websites.ca marketing. On this episode, we have a returning guest come back to talk to us about a new software he's developing for the real estate industry. Please welcome back Josh Blais.
How's it going, Sean?
It's been okay. How's it going for you? I heard you've been pretty busy.
I have been. I mean, the last time I saw you, I was sleeping on your couch. So
that's right. Yeah. And you happened to mention that you were working on something, and so we talked about maybe we should bring you back on the podcast to talk about it. Can you kind of give us a bird's eye view?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in real estate for the past, almost 10 years now. Crazy. And I just saw a lot of holes when it came to specifically with the paperwork side of things. And it's the thing that nobody likes doing. As a broker, I was like, there's got to be a better way to do something to help agents with all of the processes and everything, because it's just so it's horrible how a lot of this carries on in the industry. So I was like, okay, how do I make people's lives easier while also, kind of taking my expertise in programming and obviously with my real estate experience. So I built this product called Brokerage Autopilot, and it is a kind of a one-stop shop. What it will eventually be is like an operating system for real estate brokerages, so that agents can kind of take their mind off of the boring things about the industry, which there are many, but mostly the paperwork side of things, so that they can really focus more so on their client and, get out into the world and do stuff that they actually enjoy doing.
So was the paperwork mostly a regulatory issue that keeps growing every year?
Paperwork, yeah. There's additional forms that come out almost every single year that specifically for FinTrack in real estate, which I'm sure you're familiar with, like the money laundering and all that. But there's also the provinces differ on how they do their paperwork, and some provinces like Alberta, where we started this, are very straightforward. And then when I was starting to talk to agents over in BC, they're like, that's awesome. However, we have like 17 forms.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. So I started having conversations in other provinces and seeing like what other people are doing. And there are like more regulatory processes it's strictly a provincial game. So I was like, okay, well, we can absolutely tailor this to each province and help agents out in each of the provinces. But it is most definitely a regulatory game that people are obviously just trying to cover, their behinds. But it makes sense when you really get down to it, because they try to go through every scenario and, make sure that everything is, all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, rather.
And it's interesting that you're talking about paperwork in 2024. So I'm surprised that the provinces wouldn't have some of this stuff digitized already online.
There is some digitization efforts, but there's no holistic procedure. So
okay.
It's very fragmented in the real estate world. Like there's the board for all of Canada that creates like the forms and kind of does that. However, when it comes to the back end, how the brokerage receives forms and how they process deals and everything, it's the Wild West. So I was like, how do we standardize this procedure and make people's lives easier in a rational way? Because the way that people do paperwork is, it differs across people, but it was like, how do we make this very simple for people? And also, a much easier process that you can come in the door and just be like, okay, all I have to do is upload this. Okay, now I answer these couple questions. It becomes this flow of things that it's intuitive, and it makes people's lives just so much easier.
Nice. And so like functionally, is it sort of like an online portal that they sign into, or how does that work?
Correct. Yeah. So you'll create an account, you'll log into a dashboard, and in that dashboard, you start to create transactions. So obviously in real estate, there's essentially a buyer, a sell side. We tailor the transaction to ask questions about either side of the transaction. But generally, how a transaction starts is you want to do the FinTrack of a client first and foremost, right? So you know who you're talking about, you know who you're dealing with, and that's how we start both sides of the transaction. Then it moves on to grabbing a title of a property, parsing these documents that are submitted into the portal, and then just asking very simple questions that actually can auto generate a form in about 20 seconds. And you have all of these forms automatically sent out for signatures and ready to go, as opposed to like having to go into, are you familiar with like DocuSign and
Yeah.
the fun stuff, right? So we actually bypass the DocuSign step entirely and send people these forms for signing right away. So it makes people's lives like where you don't have to go through and like move an initial field and move where the signature is going. It's all done for you.
Nice. Yeah, I know that for the clients that I work with that do use DocuSign or something like it, particularly in the investment game, when they send
Mhm.
those to, and that's kind of, I don't know if it's the same with real estate. You can tell me if not, but usually that's the point where it's like they've said they want to buy and you're just trying to get them to over the last couple hurdles. And everyone hates everyone hates it. I don't know why that is. And they don't fill it out correctly somehow, even though
Yep.
it's supposed to be digitally, helping you fill it out correctly. And then
Yep.
I've had clients laughing because their customers came back to them like flustered, saying like, "Why do I even have to do this? Maybe I don't want to participate in this investment." I think
Yeah.
we just have to take this step. It's an unnecessary and uncomfortable step. But yeah, everyone hates that online document signing stuff.
The amount of times that I've had forms submitted to me that, things are missing because the DocuSign software, like there's not like required fields a lot of the time, or it's also based on how an agent goes in and like fills out the form. So you might miss an initial, you might miss a signature.
Yeah.
We take that completely out of the equation, so you don't have to deal with that anymore. And people have been raving about that already because they're like, oh, I don't need to have like this, multiple accounts and all these different things. No, like we send you the document to sign, it's yours, you're good to go, and automatically forwards onto your brokerage and just,
That's great.
saves
That's
you a
really
lot of time, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. Now, so I guess I don't want to get too off topic, but you're talking about different provinces and different paperwork in them. So are you now, is Brokerage Autopilot focusing on all of Canada, just English speaking Canada, or is it going to expand into different countries? What's sort of the vision at this point?
I mean, right now the vision is we could take paperwork from theoretically any country, tailor it to whatever sort of transactions going on, and line that up. Right now, I have it built out for Alberta just because that's the one I've lived my whole real estate career in, and I'm very familiar with the documentation. But I've had conversations with agents in other provinces, and they've been like, "Here's like what our forms look like. Here's a package for you. Go forward with that, and if the product is good, we'll sign on."
Nice. Okay. So there's going to be you'd have to onboard some initial clients and maybe uh, lose a bunch of time up front for that, but then you would have a new province covered.
Correct. Essentially, as soon as we have a client in one province, that province would be effectively covered, and then we just keep expanding into that province and move forward in that direction.
Nice, nice. Now, so we kind of glossed over that. You mentioned at the start of the call that you had been working in real estate for quite a while, but I
Mhm.
wondered if I mean, obviously there was something in your experience doing the paperwork that annoyed you, and you figured that there could be a better way to do it. But does the story go any deeper than that, or what have you been focusing on in real estate for say the last 5 or 10 years?
Well, because I'm a broker, so and what a broker means, at least in Alberta and Canada, is that you are a overseer of all transactions that go on within your company. So I have a small brokerage. I have 5 agents that work directly with me. So I oversee all of their transactions and everything along those lines. However, a couple of years ago, we had like 30 transactions going through the brokerage on a monthly basis. And I was like, okay, this is either the point where I need to bring along a assistant or get somebody in the door that can help me deal with this, or I'm going to have to start building some systems. And I said, okay, I have a bit of a programming background. Let's build some systems. So effectively, my entire brokerage from probably about 2022 has run on these systems where I just oversee the essentially the output of the system, make sure that everything's good to go. And my time is saved drastically over what I'll call traditional brokerages, which have a lot of admin staff and a lot of assistants. And a lot of them even have virtual assistants where they're like outside of the country looking at paperwork and all this stuff. And I was like, let's just forego that
That's not
entirely. And
ideal.
like, no, not at all. And I mean, don't even get me started on like the issues with time zone differences and all that. But like, let's just build systems that can help me run this thing. And I mean, it's scaled up to, I mean, enough transactions per month that I was like, okay, I don't need to bring an assistant staff on. Maybe at 100 transactions a month, maybe we'd be having the conversation then. But at the end of the day, what I was trying to build and what I think I have built is this operating system that a real estate brokerage could take, plug into their back end, and kind of just fly with it going forward and making both the agent's life and the broker's life, because that was my life for a few years, a lot easier.
And so would this apply to both so small to mid-sized brokerage like the one you mentioned and also larger brokerages? Are you mostly aiming for around the size that you have?
I think the hesitation that larger brokerages would already have is that they already have these systems in place with staff. So, do they want to let go of their admin staff of, 10 people? Probably not. But I think that what I have is effectively like a turnkey way that, let's say you're starting up a new brokerage and you want to create this streamlined system for yourself immediately without having to adjust or whatever. That's a great implementation of it. It's also a good implementation for the smaller brokerage that kind of is scaling up and looking at potentially bringing on an admin staff and doing that sort of thing. Because I think a lot of brokerages start at the beginning. It's just the broker, they're overseeing, their 2 to 10 agents, and that's manageable to an extent. But as soon as you get to a certain size, you're like, okay, now we got to start, hiring, bringing on support staff and all that. And that's probably another use case that would be perfect for the product.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, everybody's telling me, no matter what industry they're in right now, they're telling me what a pain in the neck it is to be hiring and managing staff. So you're helping them out a lot on the overhead with that one, I would imagine.
Correct. And I think that these things that we're doing it doesn't really need to be a staff doing these sort of things. Like paperwork is such a monotonous thing that if you do bring on a staff, like bring on a marketing staff, bring on people that can help you grow your business in ways that are actually tangible, as opposed to doing the annoying and boring stuff that nobody really bats an eye at and loves doing, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm surprised that you're using the very straightforward term operating system instead of something more sexy like real estate AI. I built a real estate AI.
I should be doing that. Yeah, I've not learned my lesson yet to really get to the sexy marketing terms. But yeah, I think it's my background in nerd pursuits that I'm like, oh, operating system. That makes more sense.
You have to say what it actually is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, like maybe I need to up my hype game a little bit.
Yeah, I can probably help you with that. So, but before we got on the call, Josh, you were mentioning that you've got a minimum viable product to market. You've been doing demos with some people. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the feedback you're getting, and also maybe some new features you might be planning in the future.
Yeah, so I think the best thing and I mean, this will be a little bit of a meta thing, is that like if you're starting out with a product, get it to market as quickly as possible and start getting feedback on it. Because as soon as I started having conversations, there was people that were saying, I really like this, but I would like this feature or like this sort of thing that could enhance what you already have. And there's things that you start having conversations about, you're like, I never even thought about that. And that's one thing that building products in the future is that I'm going to like try to get these things out as quickly as possible to have conversations and start seeing like what the feedback is. But the feedback has been very good. And I think people have seen already the value that can be provided by the system. We're just essentially at the point now where we're bringing people in for trial to see how that works for their workflow. And if it's viable and if it really does save them time, which I think it will, then we start talking about longer term contracts and growing the product as well.
Nice. Yeah. I was just thinking about it also must be nice from a programming side of things. Like it's never going to get any cleaner than this, right? When you first take the product to market, there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be suggestions of add-ons that you kind of have to do to accommodate best customers in the future. But right now, you're probably working with the cleanest and shiniest version that you'll ever have.
Probably. I have kind of thought about that. And it's kind of interesting that you say it that way, because when I look at the product, I'm like, this is something that I mean, I actually do use on the back end of my brokerage. And I'm like starting to get these suggestions. And I'm like, the hardest part is really weighing what suggestion is valuable and what suggestion is kind of like, a nice to have, or something that doesn't actually need to be implemented to really benefit a person. Because you get all these like edge use cases a lot of the time in suggestions, and it's like, do I really need to build that, or what, right? Or do I just need to have a way that they can implement this, or for that, that 1 in 100 type of transaction, or many different suggestions that have come on board that are kind of that persuasion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see it. I'm not involved directly in your industry, but I mean, I use software. And so when I look at the various software that I use to run my business and how it developed, like I don't participate in the development of it. I just fire it up every day and use it. And a perfect example would be Evernote that I'm reading off of while we're doing this interview. And I've used Evernote for a long, long, long time, to the point where I've downloaded my entire brain into it. Probably too much, like too many memories and too many thoughts. And now if Evernote goes down, like half of my memory goes with it. Hopefully your program doesn't take over people's lives like that. But the thing is, every morning I open it up, and some jagoff has introduced a new feature that adds another click to my workflow. And it's like, I get it. They're trying to appeal to different whatever, right? They're trying to now appeal to teams and companies and whatever, but they don't give us solo users any way to disable that stuff. So I'll just give you one as a programming. I'll give you one fun one. Now, every single thing that denotes a new line auto corrects into a formatted bullet point, and I can't turn that off. So that's a fun nightmare dystopia you can hopefully avoid with your program in the future.
Hopefully, yeah. When it comes to paperwork, at least, I mean, the forms change on occasion, but generally, like, when it comes to paperwork, it's we're not dealing with people's like deepest hopes and desires. So
yeah.
Hopefully we don't ruin too many lives with it.
I think all software, though, if it's not just for you, eventually that's how, when you're doing demos, right? If we forward project 5 years in the future, it is going to be about their deepest hopes and desires. Because you're like, if you give them all the things they wanted that they didn't know they wanted, for some reason it's human nature to be like, let me tack on 5 more things that I just decided were the most important things. I can't live with it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the difficulty with software, I think, is that software is either continuously in development or it's dead. But we were talking about this a little bit before recording, but that is the thing with software, is that like it can become this absolute monster if you allow it to be. And that's kind of the thing. And this is one of my earlier projects. I think that this is a direction that I really want to take my career in, and really having the discipline to not create a 10-legged monster that doesn't do exactly what we had wanted it to do in the first place is the difficulty. Because I've seen it many times, and Evernote I personally have experience with that, and I don't actually use the platform anymore because I was like, I don't need these features anymore.
Yeah. I suppose in your case, the benefit is that you'll have to keep up with provincial changes, and that will keep you guys focused on, like you said, sort of that constant development that keeps the software fresh and up to date without hopefully going down too many rabbit holes.
Well, I mean, the issue with me is rabbit holes are my favorite thing. So
they're fun. Yeah, that's right. No, but at least, yeah, that's right. You can do the ones you like, I suppose.
true.
So I was going to ask you, Josh, just to wrap this up. If you said it's just for Alberta right now, right? That's the idea.
Currently, yeah, we're actually having conversations with countrywide agents and just seeing like what people's workflows are looking like and deciding which provinces to tackle best. But yes, Alberta is the main target demographic right now, and within probably 2 to 3 months, we will be looking at BC and Ontario.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, maybe then you could just tell the listeners, the Alberta listeners, how they could sign up to get a demo, and then maybe for everybody else, if there's real estate agents across the country, the best way to contact you to perhaps get on the waiting list.
Absolutely. You can go to brokerageautopilot.com. You can send me a contact form on there and I will message you directly back. You can also actually create an account when there's a sign up button in the top right of the site. Go ahead and create an account and we can have a conversation as you kind of take the journey with us into building the software.
Nice. Yeah, they can get on the ground floor, which probably means they get in for the best price too.
You got that absolutely correct.
Last word goes to you, Josh. Is there anything else you want to add before we close it down?
Nope. I think that's everything. And thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's exciting to see this development. So I want to see where it goes in a couple of years. And yeah, thanks for coming to chat with us about it.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
If you're not satisfied with your current website or the service you get from your provider, you can switch to websites.ca for free and get a great support team behind you. Just visit websites.ca or email Ryan directly at ryan@websites.ca.
Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time.